On this joyous day, it's the first time I've worn my blue Whalers with my blue Whalers hat, and it works. And hopefully this works with the green Whalers jersey too. So I did a list yesterday while I was at work. I did a list of one player for each team that I felt had been a disappointment, and I skipped teams that I couldn't find a scoring disappointment on. This is just pure scoring. I'm not talking advanced stats. I'm not talking goaltenders either. Goaltenders I can get into another time. And this morning I got up and I'm like, well, all the stats have changed since I did that list yesterday. If you're gonna sit on my lap, you're gonna sit on my lap, and that's it. No showboating. No, this isn't your big break, Shadow. So what I did this morning was I looked through all 31 teams and I found statistical surprises, both good and bad. And I have some qualifiers with a few of them, and in a couple of teams' cases, I have more than one player I mention. Part of the reason I'm doing this is because people are saying they want me to talk about certain players, and every team has different players that I just don't have the time to cover. So let's go through the 31 teams. Anaheim, Cogliano leads in points, 9 points in 12 games. That's a surprise that he's the leading scorer. Arizona, Max Domi, 14 games, 1 goal, 9 assists, 10 points. The 1 goal does stand out, but he's got 42 shots on goal, so he will break out of it. Boston's McAvoy. McAvoy's totals are a little surprising, but the fact that he's played 22.5 minutes a game, and the fact that they revealed last night on the radio, when I was listening to the Boston game, he's played almost 30 minutes a game for the last week and a half. McAvoy's getting major minutes for a rookie. At Buffalo, Kyle Okposo with 11 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. He has 25 shots on net, so he's not shooting as often as Domi, but again, Okposo will break out of it. Calgary, TJ Brody at 13 games, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points. That averages out to 56.7 points over a season, which would better his career high by 11 points, I believe. So that's a mild surprise if you're a Flames fan that he's scoring that well. Okay, it's a mild surprise probably if you're not a Flames fan, and Flames fans are like, of course he's scoring that well. Carolina, I got 3. Jacob Slavin, 11 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. Brett Pesce, 10 games, no goals, 1 assist. And Justin Falk, 11 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. And an honorable mention to Noah Hannafin, who has 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points in 11 games. The difference being Hannafin's numbers are more in line with his career so far. The fact that Slavin, Pesce, and Falk aren't scoring is a big part of the reason why Carolina's struggling right now. No offense from a blue line that we'd expected offense from will tend to cause setbacks. Chicago. Sharp has not had the turnaround that may have been expected. 13 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points suggests that he's still on the downside of his career, and, Chicago can use him for numerous things, but goal scoring in top 6 isn't the place for him. Colorado, their leading scorer with all of the names they have is Mikko Rantanen of 11 points in 12 games. 4 of those points are goals. Colorado's been a surprise anyways at 7-5, but Rantanen having 11 points in 12 games and being their leader is, to me, a surprise. Columbus, the surprise for me is Seth Jones, 9 points in 13 games, which again is a little out of line with his career stats, but he may be on the verge of being that solid offensive defenseman that was drafted years back by Nashville. Dallas, Matthias Janmark. Janmark missed all of last season. He's now got 8 points in 13 games this season. Tatar in Detroit has 5 points in 14 games. That's 3 goals, 2 assists for him. And it's kind of a surprise that he's not scoring more. So while I could have put Larkin down as a surprise in the positive, I'm not 100% surprised he's bounced back. Detroit announcers were waiting all year for him to bounce back last year. Edmonton, Lucic, as mentioned in last night's video about Chiarelli. Lucic's start, 11 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points. That's not going to get it done. Not at all. Florida, Dadonov. I know 2BC Productions has made a big thing of Dadonov being too good for the NHL, But his 14 points in 12 games is surprising because he hadn't shown that offensive acumen his first go-around in the NHL. So good on him. There's a lot of good offense going on in Florida. It's now the defense and the goaltending that are the problem. LA, Iafallo, 13 games, no goals, 3 assists. Now, Iafallo being on the team may have surprised some. The thing that surprises me with Iafallo is he's playing really well. You watch an LA game, you're going to hear his name a lot. But he doesn't score. So he may be a poor man's Patrice Bergeron. He may be that guy who does everything on the ice, does everything really well, and his offensive totals don't quite reflect how important he is. Minnesota, Chris Stewart, 11 games, 6 goals. That's the surprise there. 6 goals. He's got 8 points in 11 games. A guy who was left basically for dead. Montreal, it's Brendan Gallagher. 13 games, 6 goals, 4 assists, 10 points. Gallagher's turned it on over the last week, and now he's their number 1 scorer. So that's a mild surprise. It's kind of a damning surprise because it means that their big names offensively haven't picked it up this year. Nashville, Ryan Johansson. And I know Johansson fans don't like me talking about him because I do point out he doesn't score very much. 12 games and 6 assists. He has no goals yet. He'll still end up with probably 15 on the year. But I don't know. Offensively, Johansson's always kind of underwhelming. New Jersey, I can't not mention Bratt. Jesper Bratt with 11 games, 4 goals, 10 points altogether. Has been a large surprise for everybody. Probably except Bratt. Bratt probably knew he had it in him the whole time. The Islanders, John Tavares, 13 games, 12 goals. 17 points. 12 goals in 13 games. Tavares is a fantastic player. The 12 goals in 13 games is a surprise. It may be because he's playing for a new contract. Sometimes letting a guy go into his contract year and play out his contract year can be great for him and your team. Sometimes they get paid and then they relax. The Rangers, Mika Zibanejad, 14 games, 8 goals, 6 assists, 14 points. Zibanejad is showing he can be a number 1 center in the NHL, which is what the Rangers desperately needed when they traded for him. So right now, the Zibanejad for Brassard trade looks really lopsided in favor of the Rangers. And yet, Ottawa's the better team right now. And speaking of Ottawa, there's Dion Phaneuf. He's a surprise in the positive. How? He's got 13 games played, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. He hasn't scored at more than a point a game, or more than half a point a game in a while. And he only has 6 penalty minutes. One of the biggest criticisms of Phaneuf over the years has been that he takes stupid penalties, he takes bad penalties, and those are 2 different things. And he's not doing that this year. He's actually doing very well. For Philly, Sean Couturier, 17 points in 14 games, 9 goals, 8 assists. All of that is a surprise to me. I mean, I had expected him to get better. I knew they were counting on him to be a top 2 center, but that's crazy, especially considering the guy beneath him. In Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby, 15 games, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. He's scoring less than a point a game. And there have been a numerous games of Pittsburgh's I've watched where Crosby's kind of invisible out there. Nobody's talking about it, though, so I try not to. San Jose, LeBanc, 7 points in 12 games. 3 of those are goals. LeBanc has looked great for San Jose so far. So that's a big bonus to them. In St. Louis, I got to talk about Pietrangelo here. 14 games, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points. Pietrangelo's always been a good defenseman. Point-a-game defenseman? This is something new. Tampa Bay, Braden Point, 15 points in 14 games. This is another example of a guy I talked up before the season started. I didn't expect him to be this good, though. Braden Point, scoring more than a point a game, has shown himself to be every bit the top-notch forward that Tampa thought they had anyways. Let's see. Toronto, Ron Hainsey, 9 assists in 14 games. Hainsey hasn't been an offensive defenseman recently as he was earlier in his career. Apparently he's in a renaissance in Toronto, or he just meshes really, really well with Coach Babcock's style, or meshes really well with the players, or it's all of the above. Vancouver, there's a positive one in Dorset. Dorset's been talked to death. 12 games, 6 goals. For me, the one that stands out, though, is Henrik Sedin with 12 games and 3 points. They've played them less, but the Sedins are definitely on the downswing scoring-wise. 3 points in 12 games, and none of them goals for Henrik. And Henrik's never been a goal scorer, but that's stunning. And neither of them are taking shots anymore. So it's an amazing downturn offensively for the Sedins. Riley Smith for Vegas, 9 points in 12 games, 4 of them are goals. Good on him. He's on pace for a lot of points, considering he was left for dead and traded away by Florida. Washington, Dmitry Orlov, 1 point in 13 games. How does that extension feel now? Maybe letting Orlov walk and trying to find a way to keep any of the other guys would have been a better move. Orlov has not brought it offensively. And Winnipeg, and I have to mention Lanny, because 5 goals in 12 games pales in comparison to his brethren, Austin Matthews. Lanny is going to be compared to Matthews the same as Eichel is compared to McDavid. Is it fair? Not really, but it's part of being drafted in the same draft class. You compare guys in that draft class to each other. It's the reason why the drafting of Ulevi is pulled apart for Vancouver as much as it is anything else, because Matt Tkachuk, taken directly after, is already in the NHL, producing at an NHL pace. So let me know who your surprises are out of any of the 31 teams, and hit that like and subscribe button if you're just browsing your way through. And thank you guys so much for watching. You guys being out there makes it worth being in here, and Shadow also says thank you. I'll talk to you guys again soon.